and welcome to another episode of Off the Print. Tonight with me is Deputy Editor of Daily Mirror, Kelum Bandara. Kelum, thank you for joining us on the program. And a very special guest, Mr. Arosha Rodrigo, who is the Secretary of the Vehicle Importers Association of Sri Lanka. And he's seated with me at a time when vehicle imports have been banned for 2022 by Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa. Mr. Arosha, obviously, thank you for coming on the program, but it's just we are meeting at a very crucial and bad timing because we are going to head into next year with no vehicle imports. What's going on in the vehicle imports industry?
Yeah, so basically the vehicle importation was banned in March 2020, and then we were hoping that at least this year's budget they'll make some sort of allocation for vehicles, but if you look at the budget 2022, they have made 3 proposals regarding this matter. One is the ban is to continue further in the foreseeable future, basically. And that is something that we inquired from the Finance Minister as well. And what they said was that, I mean, with the current situation, with the current dollar crisis, that is something that they don't even want to consider at this moment in time. So, at least for the foreseeable future, that they are not in a position to open up importation. That's number one. And if you look at the budget, to make matters worse, they have proposed another special goods and services tax for vehicles as well.
Yes.
And we actually really hope that they will consider this request to take that off the vehicles, because if you look at vehicles, it's a very high value item. So any tax on top of that is going to be a higher value as well. And also they have made another proposal to provide an amnesty for vehicles that have been imported illegally. Now, illegally meaning mostly what they do is they cut the vehicle into few pieces and they put that in a container and then bring it here, and then without paying any taxes they reassemble the vehicle. And they run on Sri Lankan roads with illegal plates. With the 2022 budget, they have proposed to provide an amnesty to register them legally. Now, as an association and law-abiding citizens, we don't agree with that decision because, for one, safety-wise, you know, you realize it's been cut into a few pieces and they put it back. Right. So even for the road passengers and the vehicle, the passengers inside the vehicle, it's a big safety hazard. And also, I think it's very unfair on people who have paid proper taxes and imported the vehicles. Of course. So, so I think as an association, as a responsible association, we would like to make a couple of requests from the government as well as from the Minister of Finance to have this proposal to kind of go revisit this proposal. One is this providing amnesty for these illegally imported vehicles, right, and then the special goods and services tax for vehicles.
Mr. Arosha, for as long as I remember, purchasing a vehicle, any kind of a vehicle, even something as small as an Alto, is a luxury item for any Sri Lankan man, especially for the common man, when compared to other countries where vehicles are available at a much cheaper price. Can't you strike a deal with the government where, you know, these taxes are reduced and even a common man can purchase a vehicle? Because obviously owning a vehicle is a necessity, because Sri Lanka's public transportation system is also not something which we can go out to the world and say, look, we've got a fantastic public transport system. So why can't you all do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very valid point, because, and especially with this whole pandemic situation, people like to travel in their own vehicles as well. We have made several requests, we have made several suggestions to the government, but the problem is with the current crisis, they're saying they don't have enough dollars to spend on vehicles because the vehicle importation bill would be rather unbearable to the national budget. But we have at least made certain points where, because this vehicle assembling still keeps going on. And I think we did a rough calculation for 2020, 2021. I think they've invested about 50–60 million US dollars for these assembling industries, and you're not getting a return on them, because what happens is if you just take a small example, 1000cc, a small vehicle. If you import that vehicle, you pay a tax of 2 million rupees.
Okay.
And if you assemble a similar vehicle, the government tax you get is around 20% of that, say roughly about 400,000.
Okay.
And then since the components and most probably the entire vehicle is being imported into the country, so the money that's going out is the same.
Okay.
But the government is actually getting a very low income. And even the customers are not getting a benefit, because if you look at some of these industries, they have kept, I think at least in the last 6-7 months, they have increased the prices 3-4 times.
Oh, right.
Because this situation has created a big monopoly for them.
Okay.
So the vehicles are not cheap, as in those vehicles. So,
Right.
so there's an imbalance there, because from one side the importation is completely being halted.
Right.
And from this side, dollars are getting leaked out, because the assembling things keep happening, and then they're not getting enough taxes as well.
Right.
This is a matter that we discussed with the central bank governor as well as with the finance minister, and they have all agreed that this process does not add much value, because these industries have been going on for about 10 years and they have not exported out a single vehicle. Right. So unless you do an export, we don't really see a point in doing that.
Yeah, now actually when we talk about this vehicle imports, it is a kind of a trade where a lot of people are involved actually. I mean, because of this curb on imports, you have lost your income sources. That is one aspect. And on the other hand, a lot of people have lost their employment opportunities, because in this trading, a lot of people are employed. So how big is the economic impact in that sense?
Yeah, now this is a whole circle here, because buying a quality vehicle is probably a dream for most Sri Lankans. So with all that, there's a huge industry built on that, from the importation, from the clearing agents to the people who provide car carriers, after sales services, servicing, vehicle cleaning. And then when you look at our showrooms, we have accountants, we have cleaning staff, we have security staff. So we have a lot of people who are depending on us. So I think at least 500,000 Sri Lankans. And they were totally depending on this vehicle importation industry. And most of them are really struggling to pay their commitments, the bank loans, and to maintain the premises.
How long can you sustain this industry at the moment? Because now import has been banned for, almost 2 years now.
To be honest, that's what now we need to make a decision, as we speak. I think there are a lot of showrooms that are being closed down.
Yes.
And then the remaining ones also, they are facing a dilemma these days, whether to keep doing this and keep paying the employees, or whether to start something else. So what we actually want from the government is some sort of survival plan, some sort of a definite structure where it will hopefully be a win-win situation for us. But so far, mainly due to this crisis and mainly due to this pandemic situation, we have not been given anything anything of that sort, basically.
Actually, when you say a survival plan, what kind of a plan do we expect from the government to be worked out?
We can maybe start importing some low value items from, as in good used vehicles that are very low value. And in that way, the dollars that are being sent out is quite minimal, while the government also gets some sort of income from it. Because if you look at the Sri Lankan, the income, as in the income plan in the previous years from customs, I think the vehicle importation tax was a major part of the Sri Lankan budget, which is not there anymore. So it will be a win-win situation if there is some sort of plan going forward. But even for that, the finance minister is saying they don't have sufficient dollars even to start something small.
Right, Mr. Arosha, Kelum, we're just going to go in for a short break. We will be right back. Welcome back to Off the Print. Tonight with me is Deputy Editor of Daily Mirror, Mr. Kelum Bandara, and Mr. Arosha Rodrigo, who is the Secretary of the Vehicle Importers Association of Sri Lanka, who has been discussing with us the dilemma facing vehicle importers in the country. Mr. Arosha, just before we went in for a short break, you were saying that you were discussing and explaining the dilemma faced by vehicle importers, and you also said that, you know, due to certain restrictions which have come in, some of the outlets have now been closed, the vehicle outlets have now been closed. Are you all satisfied with how you all have been treated under this government?
I think it's mainly to do with the pandemic, because this all happened with the outbreak of corona, and I think at least this year we were hoping that with the tourism booming, we'll have some sort of hope. But I think with new variants coming in and all, probably the plans had to be delayed, maybe for another 1.5 years or so. So it's honestly speaking, I don't know how much we can blame the government, because no one was expecting this sort of situation, no one was expecting this sort of crisis. But we actually wish, I don't know how this is possible, but we actually wish if we were given at least some sort of a plan where, you know, maybe in 6 months time this is what's going to happen, and maybe in another 6 months time, you know, we'll aim to have this in place, where, you know, some sort of structure. I think in the last few years, I mean last 8 to 10 months, they have been considering various things. Now if you look at March 2021, I think the Treasury was talking about a certain quota system, where, you know, we'll be given a quota to import vehicles. And then just before that, I think the officials said they are considering importation, they'll look at, evaluate the numbers and consider. And then very recently there was this other method that they've been talking about, some dollar method, where taxes could be paid in dollars and vehicles could be imported. But even if you look at that dollar method, I think we were told that that the finance ministry didn't agree with that decision, because, you know, there's a lot of money laundering that will probably happen if that comes through. So far a concrete or any sort of stable system or any sort of plan we have not been given. So we actually wish we were, you know, that we've been provided that some sort of a plan for our future as well.
Yes. Now when we talk about the current foreign exchange crisis in Sri Lanka, that is unprecedented. So in that situation, the government has prioritized the imports of only fuel, pharmaceuticals and essential food items. In such a situation, it's a crisis of epic proportion. In such a situation, can you expect a different another viable option to your problem?
Recently there have been statements about these electric cars. Now if you look at this whole electric thing, it's actually good, because it's green energy, that's probably the future. And, you know, some countries, they have given a deadline to themselves, I think Japan probably 2030, where all cars are going to be electric, and all the high-end vehicles are they're manufacturing all the high-end vehicles in electric plug-in as well. So the problem for us is, now there are a few problems, actually not just one. Buying an electric vehicle is 4 times more expensive than a normal petrol vehicle, because the mechanism, the technology is very expensive. So you'll end up spending 400% of a normal price of a normal vehicle. So at a situation where we are struggling for dollars, I don't think we can actually afford to buy electric cars.
So aren't these just like blind statements given by ministers at this moment of time?
Maybe lack of research, I don't know. And there's another thing, we don't have this infrastructure for this. And also this is something that we have noticed. If you look at the battery, because you have to charge it every day. The charging system, I think it's to do with the irregular voltage. The battery depreciates or deteriorates a lot faster. Whereas something that will last good 7, 8, 10 years in another country doesn't last for more than 3, 4 years here. That's why you have all these Nissan Leafs and whatnot with the mileage of 40, 50 kilometers, because the battery life has reduced drastically. Now for electric cars, we have no way of repairing them, and then even to claim some sort of warranty, you have to actually send that battery back to the mother country, because discarding that battery is a bigger hazard to the environment than using a petrol vehicle. So there are so many practical issues that need to be considered before implementing any of this. And the main one being it's really expensive. Electric cars are 4 times more expensive than normal vehicles.
Actually, as the importers, as the responsible importers, have you briefed the government about these practical difficulties?
Yeah, I think we have asked for an audience, but still we have not been given the opportunity to kind of explain this. I think mainly to do with the pandemic situation as well, because it's not really easy to have a face-to-face conversation as well. So we really hope when they make a plan, or maybe when they make a plan for the future, because what's happening now with this industry is that there are so many ad hoc importers who are not in the main structure, because what happens is obviously the government expects an income from this industry, and whereas right now, actually if you look at the structure right now, I could say very comfortably at least 50% are not real dealers. So they are these part-time people, maybe, I don't know, people who are working in banks or maybe even government officials.
Basically like a side business for them.
Yeah, a side business. But that side business is quite big.
Correct.
And the thing is, they don't get any corporate taxes from these people.
Right.
So they need to have some sort of a system, maybe a licensing scheme, or implement some sort of a system where the real importers are being identified.
Correct.
And then they are given the opportunity. And also there's another matter here, the consumer protection bit. Because we have heard so many stories where people have just given advances to fraudulent importers and they never really received their vehicle.
Right.
Or the vehicle is not in good condition.
Right.
So the government needs to look at the consumer side of things as well, and bring in laws to provide a certain warranty, and then to protect the consumer of any other fraudulent activities. And also a structure where the importers are all genuine importers and they pay the proper corporate taxes.
Right.
Because that way it will be a win-win situation for the government, because they will actually get a much better income as well.
Right. Mr. Arosha, Kelum, we are just going to go in for a short break. We will be right back. Welcome back to Off the Print. Tonight we are discussing an extremely crucial topic, and that's about vehicle imports in Sri Lanka. Kelum?
Now, in an open market economic system like ours, when curbs are imposed on trading activities like this, the market forces tend to behave differently. It can lead to various malpractices like illegal imports and all. So, how have you observed it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give you exact statistics, but this is something that has happened and will probably happen in the future as well. Because what happens is, with vehicle spare parts, obviously like they bring these containers full of spare parts, they hide vehicles that are cut into few pieces and they bring it. And to make the matters worse, they have provided the amnesty for these vehicles where you can register them legally at the RMV.
Okay.
So that of course is a strategy we don't agree with as well at the same time. So
but that's quite unfair for the authentic vehicle importers if this is going to be legalized, if these vehicles are going to be legalized, isn't it?
No, to be perfectly honest, I mean, this is not something that's going to happen in the very mass market. You can't bring hundreds of vehicles like this, but you can probably bring few vehicles. But over the years, I'm sure there are at least a couple of thousand vehicles like that on the road, and this includes motorbikes as well. So this is, on any day, is not a good practice, because if you're trying to legalize something that's illegal, that doesn't give a proper example, basically.
So now in the budget, the government has introduced this goods and services tax on vehicles. So how will it affect the industry economically in the future?
Yeah, see now this it's called the SGST, Special Goods and Services Tax. They said they have they are planning to impose that for the vehicles as well. Now the fine details of this we have not been provided still, but all we can say is that a vehicle is anyway a very high value item, so any tax, any percentage on top of that is going to be a big value as well, so a considerable value. So our request from the government is not to impose a tax like that at a situation where the industry is struggling to survive.
Now at the moment you are stuck without business operations, and in the foreseeable future it is unlikely that this curve will be lifted. So in that sense, aren't you trying to be a bit innovative and diversify your business activities?
I think people have done that already, and one of the reasons why these vehicle prices have gone up is some of the people who have been in other importing industries have come into our market. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why the vehicle prices have skyrocketed, because what happens is when the importation stops, they're left with their capital and they use that money to go into another industry. So and that's why we always say, if someone wants to buy a vehicle, there are a few showrooms that are still operating, just go visit those showrooms, because you'll probably have better prices there. And also we don't agree with some of these unrealistic prices, because for us, we don't want to have a situation where the cars are so expensive and people don't really have any hope of buying it even. So we are totally against this price hike. And also, just to make matters clear, it's not us who is doing this. Okay. It's just other people who have come into the industry very recently. Okay. So even our people, we have tried various things, and there are people who have, obviously, to answer your question, people have invested in various other things as well. But this is our bread and butter, so we really hope something will happen, something good will happen.
Mr. Arosha, Kelum, that's all we have for tonight. We hope the vehicle industry prospers in the near future, at least under this government. And we hope a lot of people who are depending on this industry can get back their livelihoods for the betterment of their families as well. Thank you, Arosha, for coming on the program. Kelum, thank you so much. Well, that's all we have for tonight. We will be back again next week with a brand new episode of Off the Print. Good night and goodbye.